Esther's plea to the king is, "If it pleases the king, let my life be given me and the lives of my people." Esther's plea is for continuity. Jesus declares, "Salt is good. Have salt in yourselves and be at peace with one another." Jesus reminds and calls them to their distinctiveness. The Anglican Church, as with many churches throughout the world, is facing the demise of the parish church as we have known it. That Anglican presence in all our little communities. Rumblings of this have been around for a long time. This year, the discussion took place on the floor of Synod. I have to confess I was not at Synod, but I did read the papers and I have heard all about it. Interestingly enough, I was in Seattle to take a niece's wedding, and the conversation flowed similarly to the local church that my sister attends. Suddenly, it's all going to disappear. The trappings of institution, of buildings and properties that were secured through the good and noble intent, the faithful discipleship of our forebears, gifted to us, the now faithful followers. The world has changed immensely, and we are now sagging under what has become a burden. Shh, don't speak of it, don't talk about it. If we try harder, if we have greater faith, if we do what we've always done but do it better, surely we can turn it round. What frightens us? It's not a simple question, not by far. In fact, there may be some who think this is great. Is it the failure of a generation to be bearers of the faith? Will somehow God disappear? What have we missed? It's as if we've got stuck. Like Esther, that desire for continuity burns in us, but then the question Jesus asks about what makes us distinctive. But for now, I want to turn to Esther. How many of you know much about the book of Esther? It's a really interesting story. It's thought to be a tale, albeit one that is located in an historical period. It's a created drama. It provides the historical background for the Feast of Purim. Esther becomes the Queen of Persia after the demise of Queen Vashti, who was dismissed for defying her husband. She didn't obey his drunken command to parade herself in front of his drunken friends. The story of Esther is full of irony and intrigue, a thickening plot, clever wits and evil villains, royal splendor and a weak ruler, and of course the hero who rises to the challenge and saves the day. Only this time, the hero is a not very likely heroine. Esther goes about things rather differently from the defiant Vashti. She uses her power for good. She uses her place for the protection of her people. She risks her own life by coming out as a Jew. Esther has to work the system in order to do what has to be done. She has no power of her own. Her power derives from her husband, the king of Persia. But the other thing that's curious about the book of Esther is it's the only book in the Bible that never mentions God. I have to say there was an elderly parishioner in a previous parish called Esther who was quite delighted by that. Neither does it speak of prayer, the law, nor most other practices associated with observant Judaism. God's deliverance of the people in Esther is accomplished through courageous human beings who were probably never sure they were doing the right thing, but when they saw the wrong, they tried to right it. It's suggested that this omission of reference to God, core practices or institutions of Judaism in Esther may well be to illustrate how much the Jewish community had become assimilated into the Persian Empire. It's likely written about the 3 or 4 centuries before Christ. Esther was written for the people it describes, Jews who were residing in the Persian Empire in the diaspora. Describing the book of Esther, Walter Brueggemann says, it's quintessentially Jewish. The tale portrays this tricky Jewish task of identity maintenance that avoids both the sellout of Jewishness for the sake of imperial advancement and sectarian withdrawal into a private Jewish world. So it's talking about how a distinct religious community practices public theology without ever giving away its distinctiveness. So, facing the end of the parish church tradition as it's been known, it might cause us to ask some serious questions about our identity. To ask us what informs our sense of being a follower in the Jesus lineage. What influences us? What makes us distinctive? Is continuity and distinctiveness assured through buildings and organisational structures? Bonhoeffer wrote this, obviously, a few years ago. Christianity conceals within itself a germ that is hostile to the church. It is far too easy to base our claims to God on our own Christian religiosity and our church commitment, and in so doing, utterly misunderstand and distort the Christian idea. In the Gospel, we hear John, who wants to prevent those who aren't the proper followers from being able to do the good stuff. He doesn't want those who are not followers to be dispensers of hope and healing. And Jesus' rebuke reorients that. Whoever is not against us is for us. The abundance of God spills out, heedless of our desire to control it all and possess it. Invoking healing in Jesus' name transforms. It changes everybody around involved in it. Something shifts. And, maybe along the way the odd demon gets cast out. This millstone. Somebody said to me at 8 o'clock, it's such an ageist text. All these bits start falling off when you get older. It doesn't talk to the old people about severing limbs and things. I hadn't thought of that. Could that millstone of stumbling and falling be those things we do or say, or maybe choose not to do or say when we might, that impede or misdirect the flow of God in the world? Each time we speak or act this way, we harm those we act against and ourselves. We could choose to blind ourselves to the fact we do that, to the impact of what we do. But because we have decided to be heart open to this God we indwell, we choose otherwise. We choose to be aware of our impact. And mostly, or if we remember and notice, we choose to try not to impede the flow of God in the world. We try to affirm the divine indwelling in the world, or to use today's gospel, that saltiness is in you, that saltiness is in the world, that we trust the saltiness, the flow that is in us, that saltiness has a place, that we have a place, and we express this into life. It isn't a tool, this saltiness. It's not a system of influence. It's something gut real. It lends us courage to name and wisdom to discern the call for justice amidst the chaos of double speak. Saltiness gives us the heart to be steady and to be still and to take our place. Honest in our failings, honest in our need for one another, honest in not knowing but being willing to learn. Faithfulness trusts in the saltiness in you, in each other and in the world. You see, the way we are and the way we act in the world affects our saltiness and the saltiness that is made visible in the world. Like Esther, we are to be mindful. We know how the systems work. We are to be skilled. We are to be aware, able to utilize, to release and realize that which enacts what we would call the life of God in the world. whether that be justice or hope or new life. However we see and know it through the distinctive community of which we are a part, that enables that to come to life. Mindful of the distinct way you do it, with heart awareness of the way that Jesus enacted for those and all parts of creation denied their share of what brings and sustains life. Christendom has not existed for many a long year. Yet our attachment to Christendom's identity markers remains. We still imagine and measure success in terms of growth in numbers and money and social and political influence, even though we know the church is a fading player in our world and has been for many years. Are we willing and able to reimagine what success looks like? Could the tale of Esther help remind us that distinctiveness, that identity, that self-understanding of what it is to be a Jesus way follower matters? That's the in work. And from this, it directs and energizes us to engage in the world, not in any old way, but in the distinctive way we are called to do so. But I want to finish with some words from Barbara Brown Taylor. She suggests, it's the faithfulness of God that makes it possible for people of faith to maintain hope when so much of what we are familiar with is unraveling, when the old is passing away, and when we cannot be at all clear what the new will be. In such a time, it is vital that we keep trying to understand the reality we face, as we also seek to discern the promise the present holds. We do that recognizing that no one, certainly not us, will get it completely right. But all of us have something to contribute to the discussion. It is in that spirit and hope that we choose to make our contribution.